everyone! Today we're going to take a look at 1957's The Monolith Monsters. This is one that a couple of you mentioned a few months ago when I reviewed The Magnetic Monster, and I thought it was about time I checked it out. It's available to stream on Tubi. A meteorite lands just outside the quiet town of San Angelo, California. The desert is littered with shiny black rocks that are strange, but innocuous enough to all outside appearances. However, under the right circumstances, these rocks are capable of growing to massive size, reproducing, and even turning people into stone. Admittedly, this premise is kind of ridiculous. Meteorites that get bigger as they get wet, space rocks invading a town and turning its inhabitants into rocks? Come on. But the movie does everything it can to sell its concept, and it's surprisingly successful. It's unique, that's for sure, and it's got some good visuals and spooky scenes, like when the geologist is transfixed by the discovery of the specimen fizzing in his office, or the reveal of a house overwhelmed and demolished by chunks of meteorite, and a traumatized little girl emerging from the shadows. And the idea that a person's body could become welded into a solid mass, as one character describes it, is freaky, especially because the process is very slow and you may be aware that it's happening. The movie does eventually provide a scientific explanation for this. Is it valid? I don't know, probably not, but at least they make it sound feasible. Then there are the monoliths, these black towers of rock that jut up into the sky until they can't stand anymore, and then they tumble down, smashing into pieces that grow into more monoliths, and it's via this cycle that the monoliths move forward. Believe it or not, it is eerie, and the sound design makes it even better. As our characters drive through a silent town, they can hear the rumbling of the monoliths in the distance growing louder, and it's downright apocalyptic. The music does a lot of the work here too. It grabs your attention from the very beginning. Ominous banging on the piano helps build suspense. I did catch a cue that sounded like it came from The Creature from the Black Lagoon, and when I looked for info about the music on IMDb, I found 4 composers listed, among them Henry Mancini, so I'm figuring the score was assembled from stock music in Universal's library. It's not an original score, but the music fits nicely. Editing Weaselberry here with a correction. In addition to stock music by Henry Mancini, Herman Stein, and William Lava, there is original music that was composed for the film by Irving Gertz. Gertz was a prolific writer with 110 composer entries listed on IMDb, but often his work went uncredited. Let me not do him the same disservice here. Credit for the story is shared by Jack Arnold and Robert M. Fresco. Arnold famously directed the 1950s sci-fi classics It Came from Outer Space, The Creature from the Black Lagoon and its sequel, Tarantula, The Incredible Shrinking Man, the alien planet scenes from This Island Earth. Fresco also worked on Tarantula, and he made uncredited contributions to the scripts for the sci-fi films The 27th Day, The Alligator People, Terror in the Midnight Sun. I have seen all of those movies, and I've seen all of the Jack Arnold movies that I mentioned. I've reviewed some of these films. The ones that I haven't reviewed yet, they're on the to-do list. I'll get to them someday. It was John Sherwood who directed The Monolith Monsters. After working as Jack Arnold's assistant director on other films, he got to helm 1956's The Creature Walks Among Us, which is the unsettling but not half-bad third Gilman movie, and then he did The Monolith Monsters the following year. And then after that, he returned to being an assistant director for 2 more years until his untimely death from pneumonia in 1959 while working on Pillow Talk. Special photography and visual effects were done by Clifford Stein. In Stein's career, he did technical work on some big non-monster movies like Patton, Spartacus, and Douglas Sirk's Imitation of Life, but he also did effects on The Incredible Shrinking Man. You might be picking up on a theme here. A lot of the people who worked on this movie previously worked with Jack Arnold. Arnold was planning to direct the Monolith Monsters, but then he was put in charge of The Incredible Shrinking Man, so he passed it along to his trusted crew to develop instead. Our lead is Grant Williams, who's most famous for playing the Incredible Shrinking Man. That was released early in 1957. The Monolith Monsters came out in December. Williams plays Dave, a geologist who spearheads the investigation after his office partner's mysterious death. I couldn't get over how young Dave looks. Williams was 26 here, so by Hollywood standards, he could still play a high school senior. And also, since the leads in these movies are not always, but typically robust men in their 30s, scientists or military men of some kind, his obvious youth really stood out to me. Or maybe it's because I'm getting older, I don't know, whatever. It does add interesting subtext, though, as he finds himself thrust into the position of calling the shots after the town is cut off from the rest of civilization. His leading lady is Lola Albright, shortly before she made her debut as Peter Gunn's girlfriend. She plays a teacher who takes her students on a field trip to the desert, her station wagon doubling as a school bus. Just look at how many kids pour out of that thing. Other featured actors include Trevor Bardet, William Flaherty, and Les Tremayne as a newspaper man who had nothing to do until the monoliths started erupting. He still doesn't really have much to do, but he travels around with the main characters and contributes some dry quips and the occasional useful piece of information. Also, William Shallard has a fun cameo as a meteorologist. The folks in San Angelo are desperate to find out when the weather's going to change, so they ring up their local meteorologist on the phone, and he seems thrilled. He cheerfully launches into a full forecast until Dave cuts him off.
Give rise to an area of extreme cyclogenesis, which in turn could develop into,
Friend. Yes?
When is the rain going to stop?
The film opens with a foreboding prologue narrated by Paul Frees, who is just about as ubiquitous an actor as Whit Bissell, except I never know he was there until after the fact. Not this time, though. I heard the narration and I thought, it's like Orson Welles, but not quite. Is this Paul Frees?
From time immemorial, the Earth has been bombarded by objects from outer space.
I looked it up afterward, and sure enough, there he was, Paul Frees, uncredited as narrator. So for the first time in my life, I have recognized Paul Frees' voice on my own. Editing Weaselberry here, I can't believe this, but the second time has already come, not even a week later. Last night, was watching Beneath the Planet of the Apes, which I'll tell you about some other time, and oh my goodness, is that Paul Frees again? And it was! What? As you may be aware, meteors and meteorites have made national headlines recently. In March, there were at least 3 separate incidents involving meteorites or fireballs in different parts of the country: Cleveland, Ohio, Houston, Texas, the Southwest. Then, at the end of May, there were reports of a sonic boom heard in South Carolina, and a fireball was witnessed. It hasn't been confirmed if that was a meteorite or not, but it's speculated. And then, just 2 days later, a 5-foot-wide meteor entered Earth's atmosphere over Cape Cod Bay in Massachusetts, causing an explosive noise that shook the ground and alarmed citizens within hundreds of miles. What does it all mean? I don't know, but it's something. It's very unusual. And it's been speculated that there could be more. Now, if events like these put you in the mood to watch a meteorite movie, you're probably not going to think of something titled The Monolith Monsters, but it does fit the bill. And if you're into old sci-fi thrillers like these, I'd say it's worth checking out. It's not knock your socks off amazing, but it's a decent little film that takes a highly unlikely premise and makes the most of it. I hope you enjoyed this video. It was on the shorter side, and some of you may like that, some of you may not. I had already committed to reviewing this movie this week, and then I watched it, and it turned out I didn't have a ton of notes, but that's just the way the cookie crumbled. It happens sometimes. Let me know what you think of this movie if you've seen it in the comments below, and I'll be back next Saturday with a longer video, I'm sure, sharing what else I saw in July. Thanks for watching.